Somewhere in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's a house sitting on a quiet street with a freshly painted front door, a two-car garage, and a backyard big enough that the neighbors can't see into it. The kitchen was just renovated. Hardwood floors throughout. Central air. It has been listed for 47 days. Nobody has made an offer. Not because something is wrong with the house. Not because the neighborhood is dangerous. Not because the sellers are being unreasonable. Because the people who could afford it, the people who should be buying it, are still renting a 900-square-foot apartment in Austin or Denver or Seattle, paying $2,400 a month, convinced that this is just the way things are now. It isn't. There are 10 states in this country where the math has quietly, dramatically shifted, where employers are paying wages that haven't caught up to the national cost of living conversation yet, where housing inventory is sitting untouched, and where a remote worker, a relocator, or a first-time buyer willing to do 30 minutes of research could change their financial life inside of a year. You haven't heard about most of them. Not from the mainstream outlets. Not from the real estate channels pushing Phoenix and Nashville for the 4th year running. What we're counting down today isn't a travel guide. It's a financial map built from labor data, median income shifts, and housing cost ratios that most people never bother to line up side by side. By the time we reach number 1, you're going to wonder why nobody handed you this list sooner. Stay with me, because number 4 alone is going to make you reconsider everything you thought you knew about where the opportunity actually is right now. Before we get into the list, let's be clear about what this is and what it isn't. This isn't a ranking of the prettiest states. It isn't based on Sunshine Hours or Zillow's Hottest Markets algorithm, which, by the way, is optimized for sellers, not for you. This countdown is built on 3 numbers that actually matter: median household income, median home price, and the income-to-housing ratio. How many years of your salary it realistically takes to own a roof over your head. Most relocation content skips that 3rd number entirely. That's not an accident. We also layered in job growth data, remote work infrastructure scores, and rent-to-own conversion rates, because in 2026, the best state to live in isn't just where salaries look good on paper. It's where your salary survives contact with reality. Some of these states are going to surprise you. Some are going to confirm a suspicion you've had for a while. And at least 2 of them are places the mainstream real estate conversation has been actively steering people away from, for reasons that benefit investors far more than they benefit you. Let's get into it. Real quick, before we hit number 10. If you've ever felt like the housing market was designed for everyone except you, the investor with 10 properties, the developer with the city council connection, the landlord who bought in 2012 and hasn't done a single thing to earn what they're charging you, this channel exists specifically to have that conversation. We don't take sponsorships from real estate platforms. We don't promote listings. Nobody is paying us to make a particular state look good. Hit subscribe now, not at the end. Now, because the people who find this channel and leave without subscribing are the same people who find a great market, hesitate for 6 months, and watch someone else close on the house they were thinking about. That's not a sales pitch. That's just a pattern. And if you know someone, a friend, a sibling, a coworker, who is currently overpaying for rent in a city that stopped making financial sense 3 years ago, send them this video before we hit number 5. Because what's coming in this list is exactly the conversation they've been waiting for someone to have honestly. All right, number 10. Number 10, Tennessee. The state that stopped being a secret, but still has a window. Most people already know Tennessee has no state income tax. What most people don't know is that the window, the narrow, genuinely affordable window that existed before Nashville became the new Austin, didn't close everywhere at the same time. Nashville is gone. Let's be honest about that. Median home prices in Davidson County crossed $450,000 in 2025, and the rent-to-income ratio looks almost identical to markets people fled from in California. If someone is telling you Nashville is still a hidden gem, they either bought in 2019 or they're selling something. But Tennessee is not Nashville. Chattanooga's median home price sits at approximately $285,000, with a median household income pushing $58,000 and a job market that added over 4,200 positions in healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and logistics in the last 12 months alone. the income-to-housing ratio there is still functional. Barely, but functional. Knoxville is quieter and more interesting than it gets credit for. Median home price hovering around $265,000. University-anchored economy. Remote worker infrastructure that ranks in the top 20 mid-sized cities nationally. Rental vacancy rates climbed 3.1% last year, which means landlords are negotiating in ways they flat-out refused to 2 years ago. Here's the practical takeaway for Tennessee right now. If you are relocating, do not anchor your search to Nashville. That's the trap. The real play is a 90 to 120-mile radius from Nashville, close enough to access the employment corridor, far enough that the price premium hasn't fully arrived yet. And if you're a renter in Knoxville or Chattanooga right now, rising vacancy rates mean you have leverage you probably aren't using. Landlords in softening markets will negotiate on price, on lease terms, on moving costs, but only if you ask. Most renters don't ask. That's not a coincidence. That's conditioning. Tennessee lands at number 10 because the opportunity is real but narrowing fast. The states coming up on this list still have more runway, more time, more leverage, more room between what things cost and what they should cost. And the gap we're about to walk into at number 9 is significantly wider. Number 9. North Carolina. The market that's splitting in half, and most people are standing on the wrong side. Here is something the relocation content machine will not tell you about North Carolina. The state is not one market. It never was. But in 2026, the gap between its two halves has become so extreme that calling them the same state in the same conversation is almost financially misleading. Charlotte and the Research Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, have absorbed so much coastal migration money that their price-to-income ratios now rival markets, people left behind in Virginia and Maryland. Median home prices in Raleigh crossed $415,000 last year. Average rent for a two-bedroom in Charlotte sits above $1,800. The dream that drove people here from New York and New Jersey 5 years ago has, for a significant portion of those same people, already expired. That's the half everyone is talking about. Here's the half nobody is talking about. Hickory, North Carolina. Median home price, $224,000. Median household income, $52,000. Furniture manufacturing sector that never fully left. A healthcare employment base that expanded quietly through 2024 and 2025. Broadband infrastructure scores that place it in the top tier of small metros for remote work viability. Fayetteville, Greenville, Rocky Mount. These are not glamorous names. They are not going to appear on a lifestyle blog about the best places to drink craft beer and work from a co-working space. But they have something the glamorous names stopped having 3 years ago. A realistic path to ownership for a household earning a normal income. Here's the practical intelligence embedded in North Carolina's split. The cities absorbing the most relocation hype are simultaneously the cities producing the most motivated sellers, people who arrived, found the cost of living closer to what they fled than what they were promised, and are now quietly reconsidering. In softening submarkets within even Charlotte's metro, days on market numbers stretched significantly through late 2025. That is buyer leverage. That is negotiation room that did not exist 18 months ago. The people winning in North Carolina right now are not the ones chasing the brand. They are the ones reading the vacancy data and moving 90 miles in the right direction. Number 8 is a state where that distance is even more forgiving. Number 8, Ohio. The state everyone wrote off, and the reason that was always the point. Let's talk about what happens to a housing market when an entire generation of content creators decides a place isn't cool enough to mention. Ohio happened. For the better part of a decade, Ohio has been the punchline in the relocation conversation. While everyone was posting about Austin and Scottsdale and Boise, Ohio was sitting quietly with some of the most structurally sound income-to-housing ratios in the entire country, and almost nobody under 40 was paying attention. That is changing. And if you're early to this, the window is still open. Columbus first, because Columbus deserves more than the dismissal it typically gets from coastal relocation content. Median home price in the Columbus metro currently sits around $285,000. Median household income has crossed $67,000. driven by a tech employment corridor that expanded significantly when Intel committed to a $20 billion semiconductor facility in nearby New Albany. That facility is not a rumor. It is under construction. It is already generating supplier jobs, logistics jobs, and service sector employment that hasn't yet been priced into the surrounding housing market the way it eventually will be. That lag between major employer arrival and housing price response is one of the most reliable opportunity windows in real estate, and Columbus is sitting inside it right now. Cincinnati runs a similar story from a different angle. Median home price hovering around $255,000. A healthcare and financial services employment base that held firm through every economic disruption of the last 5 years. Neighborhoods like Norwood and Madeira offering single-family homes with yards, actual yards, at price points that would buy a studio apartment in a dozen other cities, currently receiving relocation buzz. Cleveland gets overlooked even within Ohio. Median home prices in several desirable Cleveland suburbs still sit below $200,000. The city's medical sector, anchored by the Cleveland Clinic, one of the largest employers in the entire state, provides an employment floor that insulates the local economy from the volatility that hollows out smaller single-industry towns. Here is the practical truth about Ohio in 2026. The people who dismissed it based on reputation are the same people now priced out of the markets they chose instead. Reputation is not a financial strategy. Number 7 is a state where that lesson hits even harder. Number 7, Indiana. The honest state in a market full of lies. Nobody is making content about Indiana. That sentence is the entire argument. While real estate creators were recycling the same 10 sunbelt cities for the 4th consecutive year, Indiana was quietly producing some of the most favorable income-to-housing ratios in the continental United States, and doing it without a rebrand, without a viral moment, and without a single celebrity relocation story to drive the narrative. Indianapolis median home price, approximately $245,000. Median household income, $63,000. That ratio, the one that actually determines whether homeownership is achievable or theoretical for a working household, is among the healthiest of any major metro in the country right now. The life sciences sector anchoring Indianapolis employment is not a small footnote. Eli Lilly alone has committed billions in local expansion through 2027. The ripple effect on surrounding employment, logistics, construction, healthcare support, professional services, is still moving through the economy in ways the housing market has not fully priced in yet. Carmel, Fishers, and Westfield sit just north of Indianapolis with school systems that consistently rank among the strongest in the Midwest. Median home prices still below $350,000, and commute infrastructure that makes the broader metro genuinely livable rather than theoretically livable. Here's what makes Indiana uncomfortable for the relocation content industry to acknowledge. It doesn't need a story. It just needs a spreadsheet. And in a market environment where financial anxiety is the dominant emotional reality for millions of households, a state that quietly delivers on the fundamental math, earn enough, own something real, keep something left over, is more radical than anything being sold as a hidden gem right now. Number 6 has a different kind of story, and it involves a shift most people haven't tracked yet. Number 6, Texas. The dream that's cracking, and the opportunity hidden inside the fracture. Texas is going to require a different kind of conversation, because Texas is simultaneously one of the most overhyped relocation destinations of the last decade and one of the most genuinely compelling housing opportunity states of 2026. And both of those things are true at exactly the same time. Here is what the Texas relocation machine sold you. No state income tax, wide open spaces, business-friendly everything. The promise that you could leave California or New York and immediately recover 10 years of financial damage just by crossing the state line. Here is what the Texas relocation machine quietly skipped. Property taxes in Texas are among the highest in the nation, routinely running between 1.8% and 2.5% of assessed home value annually. On a $350,000 home, that is between $6,300 and $8,750 every single year, before insurance, before maintenance, before a single mortgage payment. The no-income tax calculation evaporates faster than most people run the numbers. Austin's median home price peaked above $550,000 in 2022 and has corrected, but not enough. The correction that was supposed to restore affordability stalled somewhere between investor floor pricing and continued in-migration demand. Austin is still functionally unaffordable for a household earning the city's own median income. But here is where Texas gets genuinely interesting in 2026. The overbuilding that happened in Dallas-Fort Worth's suburban and exurban corridors has created a rental vacancy situation that is quietly historic. Apartment oversupply in markets like McKinney, Frisco, and parts of Fort Worth has pushed vacancy rates to levels that are forcing landlords into concessions, free months, reduced deposits, flexible lease terms that simply do not exist in tighter markets. For renters, this is leverage. Real, tangible, negotiable leverage. For buyers, the secondary Texas metros tell a different story entirely. San Antonio median home price sitting around $255,000 with a military and healthcare employment base that provides economic stability Austin's tech-dependent economy cannot match. Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, cities where the income-to-housing ratio still makes functional sense and where days-on-market data suggests motivated sellers outnumber motivated buyers. The honest Texas opportunity in 2026 is not the Texas that was sold to the last migration wave. It is the Texas that wave left behind. Number 5 is a state where the opportunity hasn't been discovered yet, and the reason why is more interesting than the opportunity itself. Number 5, Mississippi, the state that wins on every metric nobody measures. Here is a number that should stop you. Mississippi's median home price in 2026 sits at approximately $165,000. Read that again. Not $365,000. Not $265,000. $165,000 for a state with a coastline, a growing remote work infrastructure, and a cost of living index that ranks among the lowest in the entire nation. And yet Mississippi never appears on the relocation lists, never gets the YouTube treatment, never trends on the real estate forums where financially exhausted renters spend their evenings fantasizing about escape routes. That absence is not accidental. It is a narrative choice, and it is costing people real money. Let's address the objection directly, because you're already forming it. Mississippi's median household income is lower than the national average. That is true, and it is not a small caveat. At approximately $52,000 statewide, the income picture requires honest engagement rather than cheerleading. But here is what changes that calculation dramatically in 2026. Remote work. A household earning $75,000, $85,000, or $95,000 remotely, attached to a coastal employer's salary scale while living inside Mississippi's cost structure, is operating with a financial advantage that is genuinely difficult to replicate anywhere else in the country. The delta between what they earn and what things cost in Mississippi is not a small rounding error. It is a life-altering margin. Hattiesburg is the specific market worth watching. University of Southern Mississippi anchors a stable employment base. Median home prices in desirable neighborhoods still sitting below $185,000. Rental vacancy rates climbing as new construction outpace demand, which means renters currently hold negotiating power that expires the moment this market gets discovered. The Gulf Coast Corridor, Biloxi, Gulfport, Ocean Springs, offer something almost no affordable state can match. Waterfront adjacency at non-waterfront prices. Ocean Springs in particular has developed a genuine arts and culture infrastructure that makes it functionally livable for remote workers who need more than affordability alone. Here is the uncomfortable truth about Mississippi. The people avoiding it based on reputation are making a financial decision based on a cultural narrative. Those are not the same thing. And in a housing market where the math has broken down almost everywhere else, conflating them is expensive. Number 4 is where the stakes get significantly higher. Number 4, Michigan. The comeback nobody priced in, and the window that's closing in real time. There's a house in Grand Rapids, Michigan. 4 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a backyard that backs up to a tree line. Sold in 2024 for $287,000. That same house, same square footage, same layout, same backyard, would have listed at $680,000 in Portland. $790,000 in Denver, over $1 million in Austin at the peak. Nobody talks about Grand Rapids the way those cities get talked about. And that gap between reality and narrative is precisely where the opportunity lives right now. Michigan's economic story in 2026 is not the story of Detroit's collapse, the one that calcified in the national imagination somewhere around 2013 and never got updated. It is the story of a state that absorbed one of the most brutal economic contractions in modern American history, restructured its employment base across automotive technology, electric vehicle manufacturing, and healthcare, and emerged with income-to-housing ratios that make serious financial analysts quietly uncomfortable about how undervalued it remains. Grand Rapids median home price, approximately $278,000. Median household income exceeding $64,000. A rental market where vacancy rates have created genuine renter leverage, particularly in the suburban corridors of Kent County, where new construction overshot demand projections. Ann Arbor operates differently. University of Michigan anchors an economy that never fully disconnected from national prosperity. But even Ann Arbor surrounding communities offer entry points that comparable university towns in other states stopped offering years ago. Here is the practical intelligence. Michigan's reputation is its discount. The moment that reputation finishes updating, and it is updating, faster than most people realize, the prices follow. Number 3 is where this conversation shifts entirely. Number 3, Kansas. The most financially rational state in America that nobody has the courage to admit. Stop for a second, because number 3 is the entry most people will instinctively skip, and that instinct is exactly what makes it the most important one on this list. Kansas does not have a brand. It does not have a coastline. It does not have a tech campus that generates breathless coverage in relocation newsletters written by people who have never lived anywhere that gets cold in February. What Kansas has is this. Wichita median home price, approximately $195,000. Median household income, $58,000. An aerospace manufacturing employment base, Boeing, Spirit Aerosystems, Textron Aviation, that has anchored the local economy through every national disruption of the last 30 years with a consistency that glamorous markets cannot match and rarely attempt to. The income-to-housing ratio in Wichita is among the 5 healthiest of any mid-size American city in 2026. That is not a footnote. That is the entire argument. Overland Park, sitting in the Kansas City Metro's Kansas side, tells an even more compelling story for households prioritizing school quality alongside affordability. Consistently ranked among the top suburbs in the Midwest for education outcomes. Median home prices still navigating the low $300,000 range. A professional services and financial sector employment base that provides income stability the gig economy dependent markets cannot replicate. Here is what the relocation content industry cannot sell about Kansas. It isn't aspirational in the Instagram sense. There's no aesthetic, no lifestyle narrative that photographs well enough to drive clicks. But aspiration built on aesthetics is exactly what got millions of households into overpriced markets they are now quietly desperate to exit. Kansas offers something rarer and more valuable than a good photograph. It offers a functional life at a price that doesn't require financial heroism just to sustain it. The people who moved to Overland Park 3 years ago while everyone else was posting about Nashville are not talking about it loudly. That silence is intentional. And it is the same silence surrounding number 2, a state that has been hiding the most dramatic income-to-housing opportunity on this entire list inside a reputation so outdated it should have expired years ago. Number 2, Oklahoma. The number that stops every honest conversation about American housing cold. Tulsa's median home price in 2026 is approximately $185,000. Median household income in the Tulsa metro, $61,000. Sit with that ratio for a moment, because in a national housing conversation dominated by markets where the median home costs 7, 8, 9 times the median annual income, Tulsa is sitting at roughly 3 times. 3 times. That number hasn't existed in most American cities since before the financial crisis, and almost nobody is talking about it. Oklahoma City runs a parallel story. Median home price around $205,000. an energy sector employment base that diversified more strategically through the 2020s than its reputation suggests. Healthcare employment expanding steadily. A downtown core that has absorbed genuine investment without absorbing the price consequences that investment typically triggers elsewhere. Here is what makes Oklahoma specifically compelling for remote workers in 2026. Tulsa Remote, the program that offered $10,000 cash grants to remote workers relocating to the city, generated something more valuable than its direct financial incentive. It generated infrastructure, co-working spaces, a deliberately cultivated remote work community, broadband investment that transformed Tulsa's digital connectivity scores from a liability into a genuine asset. The grant funding has evolved, but the infrastructure it built remains. For a remote worker earning $80,000, $90,000, or $100,000 attached to a coastal salary, landing inside Tulsa's cost structure means the financial margin between income and expenses becomes genuinely transformative. Not marginally better, structurally different. Oklahoma's reputation as a flyover state is doing enormous financial work on behalf of the people already living there affordably. The number one state on this list takes everything Oklahoma represents and adds something most people stopped believing was still possible anywhere in America. Number 1, Iowa, the quietly radical state that solved the housing equation nobody else could. There's a neighborhood in Des Moines, Iowa. Tree-lined streets, 4-bedroom colonials with attached garages and full basements, a school district that outperforms the national average on every measurable outcome, 15 minutes from a downtown core that has absorbed $2 billion in development investment over the last decade without losing the cost structure that makes it livable for people who work for a living. Median home price in Des Moines in 2026, approximately $215,000. Median household income, $67,000. That is not a typo. That is not a struggling exurb 3 hours from the nearest airport. That is a fully functioning, amenity-rich, economically stable American city where the fundamental math of housing, earn money, buy shelter, have something remaining, still works the way it was supposed to work everywhere. Iowa's employment base is more sophisticated than its agricultural reputation suggests. Des Moines is the third largest insurance industry hub in the United States. Financial services, data center infrastructure, Microsoft, Google, and Meta have all made significant Iowa data center investments, and a healthcare sector that expanded consistently through every economic disruption of the last decade. The jobs are there, the salaries are real, and the housing market hasn't punished people for showing up yet. Cedar Rapids tells a similar story from a smaller scale. Median home prices still navigating the low $180,000 range. Advanced manufacturing employment. A cost of living index so favorable that households relocating from coastal markets routinely describe the first year as financially disorienting. Not because things are difficult, but because the absence of constant financial pressure takes adjustment. Iowa City anchors the southeastern corner of the state with a Big Ten university economy, a healthcare employment base centered on one of the top university hospital systems in the country, and neighborhood housing stock that would list at 3 times the price in any college town with a more recognizable name. Here is the honest case for Iowa as the number 1 state on this list. It is not exciting in the way markets get exciting when speculation arrives and prices detach from reality. It is not trending. It is not generating content. It is delivering, quietly, consistently, without requiring financial heroism from the people who choose it. And in 2026, in a national housing environment where financial heroism has become the baseline expectation just to keep a roof overhead, that quiet delivery is the most radical thing a state can offer. The people who moved to Des Moines 3 years ago, while the content machine was fixated on Miami and Phoenix, are not complaining. They own something. They have margin. They are not anxious every time the rent renewal notice arrives. That is not a small thing. That is everything. The pattern nobody is naming out loud. Here is what every state on this list has in common. Not geography, not climate, not a particular industry, or a specific tax structure. What they share is this: they were all ignored at exactly the moment the ignoring became expensive for everyone who participated in it. The relocation content machine is not a neutral information system. It is a narrative engine with financial incentives attached. The cities that get coverage are the cities with real estate industries large enough to generate advertising revenue, sponsorship deals, and affiliate relationships that quietly shape which markets get amplified and which ones disappear from the conversation entirely. That is not a conspiracy. It is just economics. But the consequence of that economics lands directly on you, the renter, the first-time buyer, the remote worker, the household doing the math at midnight trying to figure out why the life that was supposed to be achievable keeps receding. The markets on this list are not perfect. They have winters and limitations and trade-offs that deserve honest acknowledgement. But they share something that the heavily promoted markets stopped offering years ago. They offer proportion. The proportion between what you earn and what shelter costs. Between what a normal working life produces and what a functional, dignified housing situation requires. That proportion, that basic, unglamorous, unsexy balance, is the most valuable thing in American housing right now. And it is hiding in plain sight inside states that never learned to market themselves to people conditioned to want somewhere worth posting about. The question is not whether these markets are good enough. The question is whether you are willing to make a financial decision before the narrative catches up and makes it for you. The bonus nobody in real estate is talking about, and why that silence is deliberate. Before you go, because this is the part most real estate content stops, just short of telling you. There's a shift happening right now in the secondary and tertiary markets of every state on this list that has no mainstream coverage and no viral moment attached to it yet. Corporate single-family rental investors, the institutional buyers who absorbed enormous volumes of entry-level housing inventory between 2020 and 2023, are quietly beginning to offload properties in the exact markets where their rent growth projections have not materialized. Midwest markets, secondary southern metros, the kinds of cities that appear on lists like this one. When institutional investors exit a market, they do not announce it. They do not hold press conferences. They list properties at prices calibrated to move quickly, which means they list below the retail curve. And they list in volume, which means inventory appears suddenly in markets that felt tight 6 months earlier. That wave is beginning. It is not theoretical. Disposition activity from major institutional landlords in Midwest and Mid-South markets accelerated through late 2025, and the pipeline for 2026 is larger. For a prepared buyer, someone with financing ready, someone who has already identified their target market, someone who is not waiting for a mainstream publication to validate the decision, this represents the closest thing to a structural buying opportunity that has existed in affordable American housing markets since 2012. The people who act before the coverage arrives are the people the coverage eventually writes about. If this video did what it was supposed to do, if it shifted something in how you're thinking about where the real opportunity actually lives right now, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your state in the comments below. Because the most valuable thing this community builds is not a list. It is the conversation happening underneath it.